The phone rang. It was Lester. My heart raced. One message. Come home. Everything you know is a lie. I was about to find out why. I don't know why I agreed to this family dinner. I should have known better. My family has a habit of turning everything into a spectacle. Every holiday, every birthday, it's the same thing, people fighting over something ridiculous, pretending it's not about money, when it always is. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, I was about to do something that would change everything. Let me give you some context. My name's Elliot. In my family, I've always been the one who has it together. I worked my ass off, built my own company from the ground up, and for once, I was finally enjoying the fruits of my labor. A successful business, a luxury car, and a house that screamed I'd made it. But that was before Uncle Lester's business venture took a turn. Uncle Lester, where do I even begin? He's always been the self-proclaimed genius of the family, claiming that his next idea would finally make all of us rich. Spoiler alert, it never does. A couple of months ago, he got my cousin April involved in one of his projects, something about eco-friendly tires that revolutionized the car industry. Sure, Lester, and I've got a bridge to sell you. April, being the eager go-getter she is, drained her savings into it. Naturally, Lester used her investment to cover some of his gambling debts, which, you guessed it, no one knew about until it was too late. So, there I was, sitting at my mother's dinner table, trying to ignore the mess that had been made of everything. The house was buzzing with laughter, but it didn't feel right. The room was too small for the tension, too cramped for all the secrets. And there they were, my dear relatives, Lester at the head of the table, with his ever-present grin, April, still blissfully unaware of how badly she'd been duped, and my brother Evan, who never could decide if he was a high school dropout or some sort of philosopher. I don't get it, Elliot, Lester said between mouthfuls of turkey. You've got everything. Why don't you just help April out a little? We're family. What's a couple $100,000 between us? I set my fork down, staring at him. I wanted to punch him in the face, but I stayed calm. A couple $100,000? Do you even hear yourself? You've ruined April's life. You've ruined everything, Lester. The laughter at the table died. They all looked at me like I was the crazy one. April, with her bright eyes and unshaken faith in Lester, shot me a look like I'd betrayed her. Come on, Elliot, don't be so harsh, she said. It's just money. Family helps family, right? The audacity of her words hit me like a slap. You think this is about money? You think Lester cares about family? I stood up, shaking with anger. You're all living in a fantasy world. You've been making excuses for him for years while he takes and takes and takes. I turned to walk out. I was done. For the first time in my life, I was done being the one who held it all together. My mother shouted my name, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need her to understand. This wasn't about me anymore. I could feel the weight of my decision as I stepped outside. It wasn't just the cold air biting at my skin, it was the weight of everything I just said. I couldn't breathe. I should have stayed. I should have done something more. But the thing is, there's a moment in every person's life where you hit a point of no return. You can keep pretending, keep playing the role of the dutiful son, the reliable friend, the guy who has it together, but in that moment, you realize that all of it is a lie. I didn't know where I was going. The city stretched out before me, a landscape of neon signs and endless streets, but none of it seemed to matter. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't want to check it. I already knew who it was. Lester. Of course. It's funny how a single text message can feel like a chain wrapped around your neck. Come on, Elliot. Don't be like this. We're family. I'm doing this for all of us. Bullshit. I didn't even need to read the rest. I already knew it was another empty promise, another lie. But then another message came through. This time from April. It made my heart sink. Elliot, please. I'm really scared. This isn't what you think. I need you to help me. If you don't, I don't know what will happen. I stood there for a moment, the cool air rushing past my ears. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to be the one who cleaned up after his mess again. But the idea of April being stuck in the middle of all this made my insides twist. She didn't deserve this. I sighed, looked up at the towering buildings around me, and for a split second, I had the absurd thought that maybe I should just disappear. Just walk away. I could sell everything, disappear into some other part of the world, start fresh. Maybe find a place where no one knew me. But the moment passed. I wasn't that guy. Not yet, anyway. I hailed a cab and gave the driver my address. On the way back, I thought about what I had to do. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about power, control, and how far Lester was willing to push things before the whole family turned against him. When I got back to the house, the front door was slightly ajar. A gust of wind blew past me as I stepped inside. The lights were dimmed, and the smell of the turkey lingered in the air. No one was in the kitchen. No one was in the living room. Then I heard a faint rustling sound coming from the basement. My gut twisted. I'd spent years avoiding that part of the house. The basement was where all the old family secrets were hidden, where strange things always seemed to go down. My feet moved before my mind could catch up. I took the stairs down, my heart pounding in my chest. The door to the basement creaked open, and there they were. Lester and April, sitting across from each other at a table covered in old boxes, papers scattered everywhere. It looked like they'd been working on something for hours. When they saw me, Lester's grin stretched wide, his eyes glittering with that same overconfidence that had gotten him into trouble 1,000 times before. "Ah, the prodigal son returns," he said, almost mockingly. "You had to come back to clean up the mess, didn't you? Always the hero, Elliot." But it wasn't the words that got me, it was what was in the boxes. I scanned the papers, feeling my stomach drop. There were signatures on forms, contracts, things I'd never seen before. And all of it was linked to me. "What the hell is this?" I said, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and confusion. April stood up, trying to block my view of the papers. "Elliot, just listen." "No, I'm done listening," I snapped. "You think I don't know what's going on here? You're trying to rope me into some kind of scheme, aren't you, Lester?" Lester chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "You really don't get it, do you? It was never about you. It was about us, about family. This," he waved his hand over the papers. "This is the future. This is how we all get rich." I felt my blood run cold. "Rich? By stealing from me? From April?" "You're not getting it," he said, his voice low. "This isn't about stealing. This is about leveraging what we already have. You know, I thought you'd be the one to understand. But no, you've been too busy building your little empire while the rest of us have been left to scrape by." I stepped forward, feeling the rage bubbling up inside me like molten lava. "You've been using us, Lester. All of us. And I won't stand for it anymore." April took a step back, her face pale. "Elliot, please. I didn't know about all of this. I swear." Lester smiled that smug, infuriating smile again. "That's the problem, Elliot. You always think you know everything. But you don't. This is just the beginning." I didn't know what I expected, but I sure as hell wasn't prepared for this. The tension in the basement was suffocating. April, her wide eyes filled with uncertainty, backed away from the table as if everything she thought she knew was now slipping through her fingers. I turned my gaze back to Lester, who was still sitting there like the king of his twisted little kingdom, waiting for me to crack. "You think you've won," I said, my voice dripping with disgust. "You think you've got me cornered with these papers, but what you don't realize is that every contract, every loan you've forged, it's all just one big house of cards. And sooner or later, that house is going to collapse." Lester's grin faltered for the first time. But then, just as quickly, it returned, wider, almost manic. "You're missing the point, Elliot. You always have. This isn't about some loans or contracts. It's about control. Family control. Do you really think you can just walk away from this? From us?" He waved his hand again, as if to encompass the whole family, the whole world he'd created. "You've been living in your ivory tower, playing hero while we've been trying to make something real. You and your stupid empire. It's nothing." I wanted to smash something. I wanted to tear him apart with words, with actions, anything that could make him feel the chaos he'd caused. "You know what's funny, Lester? You really think we're all pawns in your little game. But the truth is, you're the one who's been played." At that, Lester's smile wavered. He knew something had shifted in me, and I could see the hint of fear in his eyes. But he still tried to maintain that smug air of confidence. "I'm not afraid of you, Elliot." "No," I said, my voice darkening. "But you should be afraid of what's coming next." I didn't need to say anything more. I turned and walked up the stairs without another word. My mind was spinning, but it was clear, this had gone far beyond me, far beyond anything I could handle alone. It was time to call in the cavalry. When I got upstairs, I immediately grabbed my phone. I had a few calls to make, a few things to fix. The first was to my lawyer, Alex. We'd worked together for years, and I knew if anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was him. The phone rang twice before Alex picked up, his voice as calm as always, even in the face of the chaos I was about to unleash. "Elliot, what's going on? You sound different. I need everything we've got." "All the paperwork, all the contracts," I said, pacing the room. "Lester's running something big. And he's using me, he's using the family. I need you to dig through everything. I don't care if it's legal or not, find the dirt, find the lies. I could hear him processing it all on the other end. Okay. Give me everything you've got, and I'll start right away. One more thing, Alex. I need a full audit of my financials. Everything. I've got a feeling that this isn't just about Lester. There's something bigger happening here. I'll get on it. I hung up and glanced at the door. I knew I couldn't stay in this house any longer. I needed to get out, away from all of this. The walls felt like they were closing in, like everything I had built was being pulled apart thread by thread. Before I left, I grabbed a few things, my laptop, a folder of old family documents, and my backup credit cards. If this was going to turn into a war, I wasn't about to be unprepared. As I stepped out the front door, the cold night air slapped me in the face. It was a relief, really, like I could breathe again. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew it was going to be a long road. The next few days passed in a blur. Alex worked overtime, going through every contract, every forged signature, every loan application Lester had touched. By the end of day 2, he'd uncovered some disturbing truths. Apparently, Lester hadn't just been forging signatures within the family, he'd been doing it to businesses, too. I didn't know how deep this rabbit hole went, but it was becoming clearer. Lester had orchestrated an empire of lies that spanned far beyond the family. He had taken loans out in the name of investors who didn't exist, who had no idea their names had been used to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars. The worst part? He'd involved everyone. April, my mother, even me. My name had been used on forged documents for loans I had never agreed to. And now, I was stuck with the fallout. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The tension came to a head when I received a call from an unknown number. I wasn't sure what to expect, but when I answered, it was James, one of the other victims. "You need to listen to me," he said, voice shaky. "I've got evidence, documents. Lester's been using my family's savings for years. It's all connected." "Wait. What? You've been digging too?" I asked, trying to process it all. "I found things. Papers. Bank accounts. And I think you should know something. Lester's been operating outside of just this circle. He's been laundering money through these fake investments, through your family, through my family, and others. I think it's bigger than we thought." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "What do you want from me?" "I'm coming to you. We need to take him down, Elliot. Together." The plan was set in motion. James and I made contact with the authorities, getting everything lined up. But Lester was still one step ahead. I had the feeling he was planning something, and I wasn't about to let him pull one last trick. I could see it in his eyes, the desperation. That night, I sat in my office, reviewing everything Alex had uncovered. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was all falling apart. Every lie, every fraud. It was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. But for now, I had to be patient. And when the storm came, I was going to be ready. The night felt heavy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Every phone call, every piece of new evidence, and every plan I made brought me one step closer to the inevitable confrontation with Lester. But I knew deep down that this wasn't going to end neatly. There would be chaos. There would be casualties. And there would be no easy way out. James had sent me an encrypted file, and when I opened it, my blood ran cold. It wasn't just a collection of forged signatures or fake contracts, it was a series of payments, bank transfers, and shadow accounts all traced back to one thing: a massive money laundering operation that Lester had been running under the guise of investment opportunities. The names he had used to front these schemes were laughable, no real investors, just faceless people whose identities he'd stolen and sold for his own gain. I wasn't sure how deep this went, but I knew I had to act fast. Every second I spent here, Lester was getting closer to pulling his next trick. His connections, his reach, they all stretched farther than I could have ever imagined. And that was the most terrifying part. Lester was untouchable, or at least, that's what he thought. But he hadn't seen me coming. The next morning, I stood in front of my lawyer's office, watching the sunrise. For once, it felt like the world was waking up with me, preparing for what was about to go down. I knew that by the end of the day, everything would change. And when it did, there would be no going back. "Alex, I'm ready," I said when he answered the phone. "I've got everything we need. Let's do this." His voice came through the line, steady as ever. "We're in. The authorities are already on it. I've got the paper trail. You've got the leverage." I glanced over the papers in front of me once more, proof of the money laundering operation, the forged documents, everything. But then something caught my eye, something that I hadn't noticed before. A name. A name that made everything click. "Lester's not alone," I muttered under my breath. He's been working with someone bigger. Someone outside the family. I could hear the confusion in Alex's voice. What do you mean? I mean, this isn't just about Lester. There's someone else pulling the strings. Someone with power. I paused, trying to process the weight of what I was saying. I think I know who it is. I didn't wait for Alex's response. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. There was no time to waste. I needed to confront Lester and expose everything before he had a chance to cover his tracks. And I wasn't going to do it alone. James had promised to meet me at the location Lester thought was safe. A rented storage unit on the outskirts of town. It was the perfect place for someone like Lester to stash the dirty money, the forged documents, the evidence he thought would keep him in control. I arrived early, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty lot. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I kept my nerves in check. This wasn't about me. This wasn't even about Lester. This was about stopping the cycle. Stopping the lies from continuing. James pulled up beside me in his old sedan, looking both anxious and determined. We're doing the right thing, Elliot, he said as he stepped out of the car. Lester's been screwing people over for years. It's time someone stopped him. I nodded. Let's make sure he can't lie his way out of this one. We walked into the storage unit together, the musty air of the place mixing with the smell of paper and old furniture. At first glance, it didn't look like much, just boxes, stacks of files, and a couple of random old machines. But beneath the surface, it was a goldmine of incriminating evidence. James immediately began sorting through the boxes, pulling out documents that seemed to go on forever. But as I scanned the room, I felt my stomach twist. There, tucked behind a pile of old furniture, was something else. A large, black briefcase. I knew instantly what it was. I reached for it before James could stop me, my hands shaking as I unlatched the case. Inside was a pile of cash, neatly stacked, like something straight out of a movie. But this wasn't just money. This was the payoff for everything Lester had done. This was the blood money that would ruin lives, and I wasn't going to let it disappear. As I held the briefcase, the door to the unit creaked open behind us. Lester, I muttered. He stepped into the dim light, his eyes darting between us. The cocky grin was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. A man backed into a corner, ready to fight for his survival. You're making a huge mistake, Elliot, Lester said, his voice trembling just slightly. You think you've got it all figured out, but you don't. You don't know who you're dealing with. I dropped the briefcase onto the floor with a loud thud. I think I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I said, my voice low. And you're done. Lester laughed, but it was hollow, like he knew the jig was up. You really think you can take me down? You think the family will side with you over me? You'll lose everything, Elliot. You'll lose it all. I stepped closer, my mind racing with everything I had learned, everything I'd seen. You don't get it, Lester. You already lost. This time, the lies end. He lunged forward, but it was too late. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance. James had called in the authorities, and they were finally here to see this through. As Lester's face twisted with rage and fear, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared. The truth had finally caught up with him. The next few days were a blur. Police interviews, lawyers, investigators, it was all one big whirlwind. But it was worth it. Lester was arrested. The evidence was undeniable. And for once, I didn't have to be the one to clean up after him. Samantha reached out to me the day after the news broke. Her voice was shaky, hesitant. I didn't know, Elliot. I swear. I should have seen it. I didn't answer right away. The hurt, the betrayal, it was still there, but it was beginning to fade. It's too late for apologies, Sam. He's gone. And I'm done. I sat back in my office, the papers from the case scattered across my desk. My phone buzzed, it was Alex. Elliot, we've got it all. Lester's going down, but there's something else. That someone else you mentioned earlier? We traced it back. It's worse than we thought. I leaned forward, my heart pounding again. Who is it? Alex's voice was grim. Your father. I felt my world tip sideways. My father? The man I trusted, the one who'd always played the role of the wise, respectable patriarch? How could that even be possible? But Alex's voice cut through the shock, pulling me back into the moment. It's all there, Elliot. Bank accounts, transfers, even some of the same signatures Lester was using. We've got evidence that your father wasn't just aware of the scams, he was orchestrating them. I could barely breathe. My father, the man who taught me everything I knew about integrity, hard work, and loyalty, had been in on it the whole time? I wanted to scream, to throw my phone across the room, but I stayed still. Silent. Everything I thought I knew had been shattered in an instant. Are you sure? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Alex didn't hesitate. I'm sure. Your father's been laundering money through your family's businesses for years. He's the one who introduced Lester to some of those high-profile investors. He's the one who put the plan into motion. I closed my eyes, trying to wrap my mind around it. The betrayal was deeper than I'd ever imagined. How could he? How could he do this to me, to the family? The next few hours were a blur. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't focus. I walked the streets, my mind racing with the weight of what Alex had told me. My father, my own flesh and blood, had been part of the nightmare that Lester had created. I couldn't face it. Not yet. But I had to. Eventually, I found myself standing in front of my father's house. The place I'd grown up in. The place that once felt like home but now seemed like a lie. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I walked through that door, but I knew one thing for sure, the truth had to come out. There would be no more lies. I rang the doorbell, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. A few moments later, the door opened. My father stood there, his usual confident expression replaced with a deep wariness when he saw me. Elliot, he said, his voice measured. What are you doing here? I didn't mince words. We need to talk. We sat down in the living room, the space suddenly feeling foreign to me. My father leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled together in that familiar gesture. He was trying to act calm, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He knew what was coming. I know everything, Dad, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. About the scams. About the money laundering. About you and Lester. For a moment, my father didn't say anything. His eyes flickered, then he let out a long breath. I thought you might figure it out eventually. Why, Dad? Why would you do this? My voice cracked, the anger finally breaking through. You taught me better than this. You were better than this. He didn't look at me. Instead, he stared at the floor, his face creased with regret. I did it because I thought it was the only way to keep us afloat. Things haven't been easy, Elliot. You've been so focused on your business, on your success, but you've never seen the things I've had to sacrifice to keep this family going. The debts, the pressure. And when Lester came along with his ideas, it seemed like a way out. By destroying everything we've worked for? I almost shouted. By using me and the rest of the family like pawns in your scheme? He finally met my eyes. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could control it. But somewhere along the way, it spiraled out of my hands. I didn't want you to be involved. I never wanted you to get hurt. I stood up abruptly, my hands shaking with frustration. Well, here we are, Dad. We're all hurt. And I'm done pretending this didn't happen. I left his house in a daze. The weight of the last few days had drained me, and I wasn't sure how much more I could take. But I knew one thing, I couldn't stay in this toxic world anymore. The lies, the manipulation, the constant backstabbing, it was too much. The next few weeks were a blur of legal battles, police investigations, and media frenzy. The entire family was pulled apart piece by piece. My father was arrested, along with Lester, and several other family members were subpoenaed for their involvement in the money laundering scheme. Samantha called me one last time, her voice tearful and full of regret. I never knew, Elliot. I should have seen it. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to believe in something. I wanted to believe in us. I know, I replied softly, the exhaustion in my voice almost palpable. But it's too late, Sam. I've given up trying to fix things that were broken from the start. By the time everything settled, the family was in ruins. Some had lost their homes, others their freedom. My father was facing charges of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, and Lester was looking at even harsher sentences. The media covered every detail, painting a picture of betrayal, greed, and shattered trust. But for me, it was over. I was done trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. Done being the family ATM, done being the scapegoat. And done living in the shadow of a family that was built on lies. A few months later, as the dust began to settle, I stood at my vacation home, my property, no longer tainted by their deceit. Mila, my girlfriend, had been by my side through all of this, and we were planning a future together. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. I looked out over the view, feeling a strange sense of peace. It's over, I said quietly. Mila smiled softly beside me, her hand in mine. For good. And this time, I believed her. Because some things, once broken, can never be fixed. But in that brokenness, we can finally find the strength to rebuild. With that, the last chapter of my family's twisted saga came to an end. The truth had been revealed, and I was free. Free from the lies, free from the weight of their expectations. Free to finally live my life on my own terms. And this time, no one could take that away from me.